The Irrational Confidence Podcast. The Clemson Tigers are facing off the Georgia Bulldogs. Rematch from a couple years ago. At time of record, Georgia is a 13.5-point favorite in this game. I think that's real low for this football game. They're giving a lot of faith to that Clemson team. But Fresh, you're the resident Georgia fan, so I'll let you have it.
Well, first off, I'll start with Clemson side. They've been getting bashed and beaten up for a long time. They're still a resilient football team. Maybe the talent's not what it was under the Watson Lawrence years. But they could have been down and out last year, and Tyler from Spartanburg got them sort of fired up, and they won 5 straight to end the year. They weren't fantastic. They weren't dominant, but you know what? They still won ball games. Got a lot of guys with the NFL draft up this year, and not many guys have been entered in. They don't hit the transfer portal. But there's still going to be some sort of grit and unity from Dabo. This is going to be more of a calling of his entire program standard right here. If they come out and put up a fight and hold the dogs, and I'm not saying win, but if they put up a fight and they keep it tight and they play very aggressive and tight football and they tackle and they pop people in the mouth, all right, you know what, Dabo, you do have your program works and the way your image in is fine. Like you got something there. If they come out and get beat down, blown out, we're gonna start looking at Dabo like, what were y'all doing those few years when you were winning? There was some stuff going on there. You might have been NIL before NIL existed. And bringing some kids in there because the talent pool is not what it used to be. There's gonna be some questions raised of, hey, go to the portal. What's going on? Your recruiting kind of slipped a little bit. What's happening there up in upstate South Carolina? But this ball game is going to be that kind of referendum on that Clemson football program. Either they're one or the other. As Kirby Smart likes to say, you're elite or you're not. And that's kind of where this game's going to go. From the Georgia perspective, the last time you were in this building, you got beat by Alabama. Maybe you came in, maybe you thought you were like, hey, Jalen Milroe, we got this thing built. We'll be in the playoff, whatnot. Ball did bounce our way a few times. We lost. Dealt with our situation down the Orange Bowl, moved on. What kind of football team comes into this in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium and shows up? Is this some team that's aggressive like we saw in Miami? Or is it a team that thinks, oh, we're playing Clemson, we're a 13.5 favorite, we'll get this thing taken care of, we'll walk in, we'll sweep the floor with them and move on out. And before you know it, you're in a ball game in a dogfight. Kirby Smart, the rest of this program, you've got to be able, I got full faith he's going to do it, but you still have to see it. Where's the focus of this football team? Are they determined to get this football game under control and assert their dominance as a top 5 program, number 1 overall, right now currently ranked, in the nation? Or are they going to be a team, well, hey, you know what? Yeah, they're good, but those guys aren't organized, so they're not ready to play in big games. I don't think that's the case, but that's going to be looked at right now in this football game being kicked off at noon. Everyone's going to watch. The Dogs need to come in aggressive like they did versus Oregon 2 years ago. From the very first snap, hitting people in the mouth, flying all over the field, throwing points on the board in a ridiculous amount, and absolutely just blowing the opponent out. If you do that and assert your dominance, you're going to basically say right off the bat, we are the number 1 team in the country, and everything's going to have to run through us. We are going to get that number 1 seed. Obviously, a lot more games have to come down the stretch, but you've got to come out and assert the dominance right off the bat early and make sure it's known. If you let Clemson hang around, you never know what could happen. Phil Maffa for Clemson and Cade Klubnik, they're okay players. Have they grown in the next year of Garrett Riley's spread offense? Have they been able to get some more experience? Have they gotten more comfortable in that offense? We're going to find out. Because if you let them hang around, they might be able to make some plays down the stretch and win the football game. I'm not saying they're great, but if you let the team hang around, ball bounces their way, they might be able to get an upset. You've got to come out and assert the dominance if you're the Dogs. You cannot do what happened last time you were in the Dome, where you sort of coast through it, sleepwalk through the first half, and before you know it, you're in the ball game, and maybe you're not in the right end of it. Clemson is going to have talent. Peter Woods at tackle, Sammy Brown, Barrett Carter, the best linebacker in my opinion in the country. They're going to have some guys in that front 7 box from the defense. The secondary got either transfer portal or draft class got decimated. There's a lot of inexperience. Carson Beck, it's his 2nd year in this offense. You and Mike Bobo need to attack the secondary for Clemson. Get vertical with the passing game. Push the ball downfield. From that perspective, then you run the ball to end the ball game. But you've got to attack this young secondary. Challenge them. See if they're really up to their snuff and ready to go. I got a feeling they're going to be doing a lot of supporting. They bring some extra blitzes to help that youthful secondary. Try to bring some extra pressure. You're going to have a lot of hot reads. You're going to have a lot of man coverage. You've got to find ways to get comfortable and make those adjustments and make those plays happen down the field. If you use that plethora of receivers, you're going to hurt Clemson. Eventually, they will fade. But you've got to be aggressive. You cannot play scared in this ball game. Come out and assert the dominance from the very start. Another thing that we're going to see, and I think it's going to be a common theme across the board for any program that has any kind of playoff aspirations, a lot of rotations. This is a long season. If you think through the playoff and how go conference championship game plus 3 to 4 rounds of playoff, you're going to need depth. Guys are going to, you're not going to be a freshman not playing all year long. Guys are going to get lots of valuable snaps with the game on the line. Rotating players, rotating players, rotating players. Are all those players on the same page? Have all the young guys got up to speed? If you put a young guy out there to get him on the field, is he ready for that experience? Does he understand the calls? Is he ready to see what he's about to see on that field? And that right there is going to be a big X factor, I think, not just in this ball game, but going forward, because Georgia's going to play a lot of young guys. A lot of teams in playoff contending spots are going to play all young guys to get them experience early. But if they're not ready and they make a miss on a play, that could impact the path of the team. So you've got to get these guys coached up, be ready for a lot of players on the field, and a lot of guys getting circulated through. You're going to learn a lot of new names that you haven't seen before because more guys are going to get a lot of playing time to keep the veterans fresh and everybody experienced in case injuries that will come down the stretch happen. In the end of this ball game, I think the Dogs cover. I think they win by 20, actually. They come out, what they did at Florida State, what they did at Oregon, that's the kind of same Georgia football team you're going to see on Saturday afternoon. They're going to be aggressive, and they're going to take it right to Clemson, and they're going to show people they are truly the number one team in the country, at least for the first week of the year.
Yeah, Press, you channeling your inner Bob Uecker there from the opening of Major League is that we got a bunch of new names, hopefully put some faces with these new names here. Fresh, I'm going to tell you, this has got to be a body bagging. Georgia's going to have to come into this game and body bag Clemson. And I know that that's really easy to say as a person who is sitting here talking about college football. But here's the reason why Georgia has to body bag Clemson in this game. And it can't be even close. Georgia's schedule is brutal this year. It's no longer feasting on the cupcakes of the SEC East. They're going to have to play one of the hardest schedules that I think is in college football. And I don't think a lot of people are talking about that. If they go in and body bag Clemson and they just take them to the woodshed, they just beat the living trash out of them in this game, then what we're going to see is that they did that to Clemson. This team is ready to go through that gauntlet, and they're ready to rock and roll. Because that gauntlet is going to start at the end of September there when you travel to Tuscaloosa. Now, you're coming off a bye that week, but it is something that a lot of people are going to watch. If you're a Georgia fan, you're going to always believe in your team to win. That's part about being a fan as well. But what you also want to do is not give teams hope. You want to extinguish their hope that, oh, you're coming into our house. Now, again, they're going to be cocky. They're players. They always are going to think they're going to win. If they don't think that way, then you don't want them on their team. But you want that aura around you. You want that aura of going into places like Tuscaloosa and go, we are going to be in for 60 minutes of sheer hell in these football games. And that's going to start with this football game. Clemson, to me, is a above average team. They're okay. They're not a great team. They're not the Clemson of old. But if Cade Klubnik throws for 300 yards on you, and still you win by 14 or 17 points, everyone's going to be like, you get a nice little golf clap, like, everyone's happy for you. Oh, good, it's a good win, good win, good win. Someone still put up some serious stats on you. And a guy like Quinn Ewers, Jalen Milroe is going to look at that and go, there's something there right there. I'm going to be able to throw for 350. I'm going to be able to throw against all of them. Or if Beck doesn't have a stud wide receiver, or if ETN doesn't transition to show like he can be the next dominant Georgia running back, that's a lot of pressure to put on a team. And I know that with great elite level players, like, you should welcome that level of pressure. But again, we're also talking about 19, 20, 21-year-old kids here. Sooner or later, that's going to come down to roost here. This Clemson team, they do have some talent on it. They do have a good defense here as well. I'm intrigued to see if they have a wide receiver, whether it's Brown, whether it's Brinstool, the tight end, stepping up to be able to give Georgia fits. Georgia's got a lot of people that they need to replace, And you all know that if you, again, listen to me, one of the things I hate more than anything else is them going, oh, it's just the next man up. No, it's not. Like, you take a look at the kid that's replacing Brock Bowers, Oscar Delp, or Yorsek, whichever one's going to get the starting nod here. I don't know which one it is. But saying, okay, hey, kid, we need you to do exactly the same as Brock Bowers, who was the second-round draft pick in the NFL. Hey, good luck to
That's a
you.
lot.
Next man up. Next man up, guys.
That's where you say you have to be yourself.
Right,
If you try to be
exactly.
somebody else, then you start overthinking it. You just got to play your own game.
Right. You got to run your own race on this part. And that's what I'm saying with this football game here. I think Georgia is going to be geared up for this one. I'm going to call this one, and I'm going to say this one will be over at halftime. I think hopefully Kirby Smart sees that idea as well and say that we need to just put the boots down. I'm talking a good old-fashioned butt whipping to Clemson. Dabo's left shaking his head on there because he's one of the few teams that don't use the transfer portal and go, maybe it's time for us to change. And maybe this is better for Clemson. Maybe if Clemson needs to take such a bad loss that finally Dabo starts to change his ways and go, yeah, we're going to just bring kids in recruitment. These are Clemson players and they're in our image. I'm like, man, that's no longer the world. That was the world maybe 5-6 years ago, but that's not the world today. So I got Georgia 24 plus.
Well, I mean, one thing I think we also want to see from the Dogs is their run defense. You mentioned it in some preview episodes where they've given some more yards in the past couple of years. It's not the 21 defense that's anymore. 22, 23 gave up some yards last year. Can those guys get a little more back to normal, attack the running game, and shut it down? If they shut down Mappa and they make Klubnik one-dimensional, Clemson's in trouble. But you want to see how that run defense sort of settles in, how the guys get their fits, the linebackers sliding in. That's going to be a big thing from the defensive perspective. And Ole Miss made the change this last year. They realized their front seven, offensive and defensive line, were getting pummeled. They didn't have enough dudes in the trenches like Alabama and Georgia. They got beaten both those games. They went to the portal. If Clemson's getting run, you've got to figure that out. They've got to get some more dudes in here that can own the line of scrimmage from a defensive offensive line perspective, because that's where the game is truly going to be won loss. That's football. It's a line of scrimmage football. It's a line of scrimmage game. If they can get back to that perspective, that's the only way they're going to learn is if they get whooped and they have to make those changes through the portal to get better players in.
Yeah.